A very good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the afternoon session of day 2 of the third NASSCOM Experience AI Virtual Summit 2022. My name is Justin Jacob, and I'll be your host. We have our speaker, Lisa Lichtinger, founder and managing director, Future Design Life, who will delve on this interesting topic with Jibu Alias, content and research lead, India AI. Lisa is a unique hybrid, psychologist, wellness pioneer, and a computer code developer. It's a combo that makes her uniquely qualified to live her mission as a futurist who shows companies, CEOs, and engineering teams how to design AI in ways that provide maximum health for people who use their products. Jibu is an AI atheist and the leading expert on India's AI ecosystem. He also serves as a senior AI researcher with NASSCOM. It's a pleasure to have you both here with us. Over to you.
Thank you, Justin. And hi, everyone. We have a wonderful speaker here, Lisa Lichtinger. She's a futurist, inventor, and founder and managing director of Future Design Life. She has been a very vocal person in terms of future of technology and how it is impacting, how it will impact our human life as well. So, Lisa, I have some very interesting questions for you, especially since you are a futurist. I have seen in the last, in my life, I have seen how technology is making a progress in day-to-day life. For example, I come from the spot in India where you see big rocks in every houses, which were used to do laundry, right? You beat the clothes to these rocks, and that's how laundry was done for a long time. And if you look at the last 20 years or 10 years, these rocks are kind of useless as we have moved to washing machines, right? But now the question is, since you speak about well-being and talking about human capacity, now the question is the people who use this rock are what they're doing in that extra time they saved is scrolling through Instagram or scrolling through YouTube or scrolling through TikTok, which is the social media of the choice these days. So my bigger question is, how will tech help humanity not just save time for other leisurely activities, right? But how can this technology, especially when we speak about AI, VR, blockchain, and all this emerging technology, how can it help humanity go beyond our current capacity, achieve whatever which is the next level for our civilization?
Thank you so much. These are amazing questions. And first, I just wanted to also thank Justin and you, Jibu, and your whole team, and Priya. I have to give a shout out. And after all these years, I'm honored to be back here with you. I very much like what you started with. And very interestingly, I'll share a follow-up example exactly of what you said. Maybe 10 years ago or so was my first time in India myself. And I was also traveling a bit with a backpack. And I saw the rocks. I saw everything that you're talking about myself. And here's something very interesting. I was going from hotel to hotel. And then in between, I decided to take off the main path. And on this path, I needed to do laundry eventually after many weeks. And here's the first example of technology. We think about that I actually went through, right? To follow up with what you're saying in India. There was a bucket with rocks and water. And then suddenly my friend introduced to me some strings and wire that was producing an electrical current with soap, where you would put all your clothes in the buckets, and this electrical current that was sent through specific strings that you could buy for $5 was actually causing a makeshift, from the ground up laundry system, right? This is technology. A lot of the time we think it's AI, it's AGI, it's a paper that I published in Springer, it's only technology. This is true technology. And I'll tell you why I'm so glad to share this example and why I want to follow up specifically with what you shared. Where do rocks go and what's the next step? Anyone can do this. And so a lot of what happens is that there's various reasons for technology and the convergence of humans and technology. So when you want to solve a problem, automate it, make it faster, liberate your time, capitalize and have gain financially or with time or with other reasons, you want something to automate this. And this is one example of liberating a human being instead of having to wash it like this, and I've done it myself, washing it on one of these wooden bags, right? You liberate the human's hands, you liberate the person can go then now do whatever, play music, whatever they want, make money, be with the family. And then you have this automated system, you let it sit overnight, and there you go, right? And this is the point of technology, right? Automation, to one of the points, to liberate people. And so I think what we're looking to in the future, you mentioned TikTok, there's WeChat, there's so many different things you can do to be part of entertainment yourself. So here's another thing with technology, it's giving everyone a voice. Everyone can have their own virtual presence. So there's opportunities here. Everyone now is given the same opportunity should they have access, to these different things. And what do we have here? Access, right? The phone. We've reached a time where everyone has the ability to express themselves. Now, the challenge here is that how are we going to utilize these kinds of technologies? What's the purpose? What are they for? How is humanity going to converge, with this? So I like very much that simple example I started with because it's in the everyday home. It's something everyone can have access to like this, right? And it's also very important that you brought this up because in the last 3 years, what we've seen is that more and more and more people have been quarantined and due to the pandemic in the home, which has had a disadvantage. Many unfortunate scenarios have occurred. However, there's also opportunity because in the home, you can discover all of these different kinds of examples, right? We can liberate ourselves by being remote. Now, a lot of what's going to happen as well is when we find ourselves at home, we're going to need to discern what kind of technologies to use to allow into the home, allow into the family. And not only that, there's going to be different government regulations with different local, communities, as well as different demographics on what is available in that home. Not everyone will have the same access based on your country's laws, regulations, and rules. So that has a lot to do with, and I saw in your background too, ethics. Another example I can speak to, the World Economic Forum, they were looking a lot into how to use machine learning algorithms to hire people. So this is human resources. And as you know, there's, if you take LinkedIn, no one there is actually real. Many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, it was monster.com, but there were humans behind it. Now, there are no humans behind it. And if there are, great, I love your company. So this is very interesting because it brings in the question of ethics and morality, and where's the fine line there between your data, what's being mined, and what you're able to give. And the more you give of your identity, the more you have access, right? And so here is the convergence. It was very long-winded. Please share with me more and ask me more. I hope that was...
That's very insightful, Lisa, very insightful. And thank you for sharing your personal experience with India as well. India is very well known for its jugaad or life hacks, as we call it, right? But since you mentioned a few important things, first of all, how the pandemic has changed our our relationship with technology, of course, that's one thing. Secondly, you mentioned the automation, right? Even with the simple DIY hack, it's pretty much an automation system, a laundry system they were creating. Now, we have seen that when technology advanced, right, it generally changed the job landscape, or how do you say, human capital landscape in general. Because I remember reading few years, I think in 1940s and all, there used to be a class of professionals called the lift operators in US, right? There used to be people who were trained, they used to look like, the flight stewards on an aircraft. They were given a specific uniform. Their whole job was to operate the lift, right? Which floor, sir, ma'am, which floor you want to go? They changed so they were just operating on a lever. But in 1945, there was a strike, a huge strike. These lift operators and doormen of New York went on a strike. But the reality was, in 1940s, Otis systems, they have created the automated lift already, but people were not, how do I say, they were open to the idea of operating the lift themselves. They thought it's a very sophisticated system. So when these people went on strike, according to the data, it resulted in a $3 million per day loss back then in New York, economic loss. And this kind of led the companies by 1948 or 50, I think in Dallas, Texas, they implemented the first automated lift, right? And by 1960s and 70s, this job was completely vanished. You can see this, some of this kind of jobs still in India. But so this is very fascinating how technology changed the human capital development. So how do you think human capital development is shifting due to, let's say, particular technology such as AI itself?
This is a wonderful question. Thank you so much. And I always will have a place in my heart for the nostalgia of going. And I think once in my life, I was a young girl and I went in and there was someone, pushing a lever. I think it was for show, because then they put the button and they said, yes, where would you like to go? But there's something to the tradition there. And there's a lot about ritual and tradition. And while we think a lot of that is getting lost, there's still a way to maintain that sense of character, that sense of morality. It's about values. It's about your mission, your vision. And as you know, with Fortune 500s I've worked with, New York, other places, they're very set on the company mission, vision, goals, right? And so human capital development is all about how to develop the next generation of employees, of leaders, of technical workers. And if you have a human capital development program, they focus on your human growth and development. And if you're able to find a very good program, they focus on your values, your ethics, what it is that gives you meaning and purpose. And so a lot of what's happened is that as we go more into a technological convergence, people are focusing too much on the power that algorithms have. Any algorithm can serve to you your choices. And then we lose the ability to critically think. And when we critically think is when we're able to understand what is meaningful to us. What is our meaning and purpose? What's our calling? What's epic, right? So I believe that a very interesting thing that's happened is that along with upskilling yourself, everyone's remote, more people need to use technology to survive in the world. Forget it about the traditional education system. We now have situations where for the past 3 years, guardians or parents or teachers are at a loss because the children didn't go through a traditional system the past 3 years and now are on a revolt, right? But not against education or school, but from the technology being taken away from them. Now, this was already problematic before. However, it was a very easy panacea when kids were at home to just give them a screen. And I don't judge this. It was a very challenging time. And so what happens now is that these children are in a very interesting timeline where they're now caught in a scenario where not only their parents are upskilling, right? Meaning taking more trainings, learning how to integrate technology. If they have a small business, how to grow it, learning what all of these tools are online. Remember, a lot of businesses closed globally, not just in the US, not just in the EU. And so the beautiful thing is that families, if they can see that they're all growing in the same direction, okay? And so there are some companies now that are focusing on full familial growth in the nuclear family, let's say. So there's a lot of different ways to connect people as they're upskilling. There's games to do this. The Netflix has done something to help people not upskill, but to help people watch movies together at the same time, engage in entertainment, right, at the same time. And that's fantastic. However, if we could have more companies have that mindset and focus on how to look at human capital development as from birth to end of life, then we'd be able to understand how to do a metric study on this, how to measure this, right, for the benefit of society. And where does machine learning actually come in? If you are able to do sentiment analysis, for instance, many companies are doing this to be able to track, and whether we like it or not, it's happening. The government's running it, human resources are running it, they're pulling your data. So it's already past the time where there's a choice here. Sorry, that's not that's no longer my focus. We're there, it's happened. So now let's focus on what best to do now that it's happened. So if you do sentiment analysis, you're able to look at the text that people are writing, and you're able to better understand the stages of human growth and development. And that could be a massive, and this is AI, right? That could be a massive, productive, positive outcome of how to use this technology, right, to really pinpoint what skills people are lacking at different growth and development stages in their life. So there's one example for human capital development. And the other ways that it's working already is, let's say, Singapore government programs. They actually look, and they, not just Singapore, but other places, they give aptitude tests to people, and then they use a machine learning algorithm to categorize and pull the data. They do a cross-cultural study, and then they return to them what a good program is, a human capital development program is. So these are two examples. But the former, I think, would be a little bit more precise and really be able to give you a personalized, experience, which is what's coming. Everything's going to be more personalized. So
yes. So yeah, I think it's fascinating how things are changing. At the same time, I was going through some of your work, some of the Forbes interview, and few other things, and you keep you being a very strong proponent of well-being, right? And so I want to ask how, let's say you mentioned how automation and AI, how these things are going to, how, let's say, digital homes and well-being being impacted by this digital automation. What are your thoughts on that?
It's the reason why I decided to join AI Foundation for about a year. I stopped everything and I joined them. They were doing wonderful things in media, and I adored everything they were doing with virtual avatars. Entertainment, great. They also had, back to ethics, something called a reality defender. This means if you're on Facebook and you put the reality defender, like a virus scan, right, for your technology, it's able to tell you what's real and what's not, like fake news, right? The one project I was very excited about was because I was thinking more and more people will be in the home with computers. What is a very good use case of wellness tech? Well tech is a term I came up with. And they happen to be engaging Deepak Chopra, who's very well known in as a businessman. However, he was one of the first to pioneer meditation and introduce that to society at large. So at AI Foundation, when I was the director, we were working with Deepak Chopra and a wonderful team of product and research and designers. And he wanted basically, and Deepak, forgive me, we're close and he thinks I'm great. Forgive me. He wanted to meditate the world to death. Okay. And so think about it. It's not the worst thing that could happen. What's the worst thing that could happen? Meditate until you can't anymore. So we were able to come up with a product, and you can look it up. He's been on the Jimmy Fallon show, however, many times. And so we developed literally a real-time interactive virtual avatar of him that you could interact with in real time. And all he wanted to do was create a digital twin of himself to help people be calm and meditate. It used a lot of semantic analysis. We used GPT-2, I think, or 3 back then. A lot of technology went to the back end of that. So there is one of my favorite examples that I was honored, to be part of. And a lot of people don't know the truth that in the 70s, Deepak Chopra was one of the first people that had a virtual world, now metaverse. Everyone knows what metaverse is. Deepak Chopra actually, and you can look it up, it was called something live, something very interesting. And he actually started a virtual world. He started a game, where people would meditate in the game with avatars. And this is years ago, even before the 70s, I believe. So it was also an honor to work with a mastermind like this, and very few people know that he always has been at the intersection of technology and how to use technology to help people in wellness and health. So this is one of my favorite examples.
So speaking about metaverse and the entertainment and and other things, I know we are running out of time. So the final question is, how do you see media and entertainment, continue to change as a result of these technologies?
Good question. And back to what I had mentioned briefly before, everyone now has the opportunity to be their own star. We're on a platform, we're on Zoom. Anyone can start an account, any kind, Instagram, whatever, TikTok, Twitter. Well, we know about that. So the interesting thing is that there's much opportunity for everyone to be as creative as they like. And the imagination really is your only cap. Not only that, everyone has access now to online courses to help you become an engineer, a designer. User experience didn't even exist as a term until quite recently in the timeline, right? So I think there's great opportunity for people to express their inner worlds to the outward public. And I believe this is what the metaverse is. Every human being is having an identity and a character. And they now, Second Life existed, many other, games existed. There's now something called the simulation. There's something called Fable by Edward Sachi. Virtual worlds is, because of, our focus on digital homes, is taking over everyone's life. I think the balance is extremely important to have. However, I also believe that we are entering a world where the balance is already within the technological platform. So a lot of people are entering a world where, think of children being born right now, they're entering a world where everyone in that world has a phone, is on the phone, is videoing the live birth of their children. For better or worse, we didn't have these tools possible. So just anywhere the mind can go, right? The limit, there is no longer a limit. And I think this is very important because in the metaverse, you can be anyone you want, do anything you want. I mean, we need regulations, right? Which comes back to ethics and regulations. It's very important. but the world is your oyster. Now, I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, media, Hollywood, all of this, CGI is going to be so much better. It's going to be interesting. And the challenge is, how are people going to discern what they are and what they can tangibly see from what's in the metaverse, and how they express and experience themselves in the metaverse? Some people say there is no distinction. There is no veil, so I think that's the most interesting thing one can contemplate. Where is the line, and how much are you willing to engage in these other worlds, and how much are you not? Many people want nothing to do with it. Like when there were first banking systems with ATMs, people thought, no, that's not real money. Everyone now has a credit card. Everyone has an app, cash app, what have you, right? So I think we're at the precipice of something very, very interesting.
Thank you very much, Lisa. That's interesting. I mean, it brought me some other thoughts as well. I don't know if you're aware. Professor Nick Bostrom Simulation Hypothesis. He says we might be living in a highly advanced simulation done by future humans, right? Or a game-like situation. I think people like Elon Musk also subscribe to that theory. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. This changes happening, but overall, I believe you'll agree with me when I say that this technology has kind of democratized access to information and access to opportunities. Like you said, everyone is a creator these days, and everyone has access to creating their own things, which is a fantastic thing. So thank you very much, Lisa, for being a part of Experience AI. It was wonderful to have you here. And I really enjoyed this conversation, and thank you very much.
I did too, likewise. Thank you so much.
And thank you everyone for joining this conversation, and over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Jibu and Lisa, for that wonderful session. I had the mute button on, I apologize.